So today we're going off piste a little bit. We've been talking about the 4 principles of blueprint process, and we are going to be talking about a principle today, but we're going to go off piste in that we're no longer following the principles in order. In fact, what we're doing is we're identifying something that we've heard a lot from our clients recently, and we're wanting it to bring it to you all because we're assuming that if our clients are dealing with this, you also might be dealing with this. Typically, purpose is so interesting to me. Studying purpose, as I get to do, and all the practitioners get to do, I think people pretty much assume that your purpose is meant to serve others. But sometimes we can get rather selfish about it, especially when we're trying to figure it out. We can get we kind of turtle in. And part of that is necessary. It's necessary for us to turtle in so that we can study ourselves. Well, the practitioners and the blueprint process itself is intended to help you get outside of yourself much faster. If you're using a blueprint process practitioner and going through the blueprint process, they're actually studying you for you. So you don't have to turtle in as much, and you can more quickly get about what the full reason for your purpose is, which is to serve others. So if I were to say that all of mankind has one purpose, I would say that that purpose is to serve others. We are meant to create value. Bottom line, all of us. Even principle number 2, which is what we're talking about today, suggests that you are here on purpose. So you didn't miss out on that. Even if you don't know what your purpose is, you too are here for a reason. And of course, the blueprint process is all about how can we help you identify that reason and get going faster. Today is all about how can we help you identify that reason and get you going faster so that your people will get what they need from you. So the analogy that popped into my brain today when I was thinking about our call, you, all of us, are like literally a key that can unlock somebody's door. Just think about that for a second. You are a key that can unlock somebody's door. In fact, you're the only key that can unlock that door for them. I'm not saying that you are here to unlock everybody's door. No, we are each, and all of the practitioners know that we are each here for only a select group of people, which means our key only fits a select group of doors. But here's the thing, and this is why we're talking about this today. If you don't know what your key is, you won't know how to unlock other people's doors. You might want to, and you might mistakenly bring other things to bear to try to help them unlock their doors. And you may find a lot of fatigue in trying to help other people unlock their doors. But when you find your purpose, you know who your people are, and you know how you're meant to unlock their door, and energy is infused. So when you find that you're helping someone and you're draining of energy, it's not a good sign. That means that you're trying to help someone outside of your blueprint. And instead of a win-win, which is kind of what we're hoping when we're solving other people's problems, it becomes a lose-lose. So yes, purpose is important. It's even more important, though, to identify who your purpose is meant to serve. And the blueprint process practitioners, we're here to help you do that. That's part of the process. Not only do we help you identify your purpose, but then we help you identify those whom are meant to receive your purpose. Again, so you can scan all the people that you know and don't know yet and be able to identify who is my person and who isn't my person, and how am I meant to help them. I had this funny conversation with a client. This is a couple years ago now, and he really wanted to help out his church. So he was volunteering, and he felt good about volunteering for his church, right? Because he He believes in his church. He loves his church. He wanted to support them. He wanted to help unlock their doors, whatever it was. But he was volunteering in an activity that actually drained his energy. How do we know? He dreaded going in to volunteer. He dreaded the doing of this volunteering. And so this may seem like, of course, a big doy. But what we did is we looked at the list of things that he could do to volunteer for his church. And smack dab in the middle of this list is the one thing that he actually would really, really love to do and loves to do on his own spare time. So again, knowing your purpose is important, and knowing whom your purpose is meant to help is important. But you should know that out of all the ways that you can help people, the way you're designed to help people will actually bring you energy. So we want to help you discern not only what are you meant to do, but whom are you meant to do it for, so that you maintain your energy. And what you'll find is your purpose is actually self-sufficient when it's being used. If it's not being used, of course, it's not going to be bringing you energy and creative ideas. So you can actually trust that your purpose is a complete package. It has everything in it that you need to serve your people. So in the process of me identifying the blueprint process and starting to use it with others, I started to become aware that there were these beautiful people out there in my list of clients, only some of them, that were really, really my people in that they wanted to do what I did. And many of them are on this call here today. And so all of us are available to be used in this way, because it is our purpose to help you find yours and to use yours to help other people's doors unlock. We love the doing of it. And you can see the power in loving what you do. If you love what you do, you're going to be super curious about it. So you're going to soak up all kinds of learning for it. And it will be self-sustaining, because the love of what you do will just continue, it'll build upon itself when you're using your purpose. So I have, as I mentioned, a group of these lovely people with me here today. And if you want to know a fuller list, you can go to blueprintprocess.com and you can see others. What's more is you can actually click on each one of us and learn a little bit more about us and see our contact information, etc. And why is this important? Just as you are meant to serve with your purpose only a certain group of people, each of us as practitioners are only meant to serve a certain group of people. So it's important, and that's why we're here today, that you get the opportunity to get to know each one of us without committing, so that you can make sure that whomever your practitioner is, they are someone that you feel you can trust, someone that you really look forward to talking to, that you get excited when you listen to some of their videos or read their blogs or whatever. So what we're going to do today is I have 4 of the practitioners with me specifically that are going to ask each other a series of questions that will illustrate this point a little bit more of principle number 2, which is that you are here on purpose. They're going to be asking each other the questions, but doesn't mean you can't be asking yourself those questions as well. And then also each of the 4, we're going to share with you an action item. We don't want you to think that you can't get on this journey without us. We don't want you to think that way. Like many of us, you can do some of your own self-study. And if that self-study prompts greater curiosity and a desire to have someone else helping you, we're here for you. So each of the 4 are not only going to ask each other questions that will help illustrate this point of principle number 2 a little bit further, but they're also going to suggest an action item. So you get to walk away today with 4 potential action items. You don't have to do all of them. This isn't like school. But if you're intrigued by one of them, let's say Nicole, when she shares her question and she's talking and she's sharing her action item, let's say that you just feel this inexplicable pull towards her. Well, then I'd recommend you follow up with her. Not only do the action item, but maybe reach out to her and see if she'd be up for a talk, which I know she would be. And all of us are the same in that way. So what we're going to do, we're going to go in this order, guys. We're going to start with Seth. Seth, raise your hand. Hi. And then we're going to go Nicole, and then Ray, and then Brandon. So let's go in that order. So hi, Brandon. So Seth is going to start. So he's going to ask the 4 other practitioners, or rather the 3 other practitioners, a question of his that he came up with that relates to principle number 2 of Blueprint Process, which is that you are here on purpose. So Seth's going to ask his question. He's going to facilitate that part. So Seth, if you'll just go right along, you'll ask Nicole, Ray, and Brandon. And then Seth, if you would finish by sharing what your action item is, and then we'll go to Nicole, Ray, and Brandon. Are we all good? Excellent. Seth, what you got?
All right. So for context, as I was getting ready with this question, for people out there that grew up in the children were meant to be seen and not heard realm, asking people to start thinking about themselves in terms of community context and unique purpose and all that can be really difficult because they were pretty much raised in a space of being invisible, do what you're told, stay out of trouble, you know, some basic things. So here's the question. Do you notice any common traits in your meaningful or memorable stories that you just do, anything that flows and feels frictionless to help you start finding that unique purpose, commonality in stories, things that you may not only know about yourself, but what others would observe seeing you doing when you're lit up and doing amazing things. So hopefully that's makes sense and that's some okay context.
Nicole, how about you?
I love this question because it really does go to the heart of Blueprint and how we begin to uncover the things that are part of our blueprint. So I think the things that I notice, the common threads that I notice as I'm thinking through memorable stories and whatnot, is I seem to have an ability to just connect with people that maybe I don't have a whole lot in common with, people that I wouldn't probably choose necessarily to be around, but it's something that happened even as a kid. You know, I would be in positions where I had to be with my parents' friends and their kids, and I didn't really have anything in common with those kids, but just being able to make those connections and find some commonality, build on that, even if it's just for a little while. And really, I think the beauty of that is walking away from an interaction that may never happen again, but it left some sort of positive impact, positive note on both me and whoever it is that I had that contact with.
Lovely. Thank you, dear. I love how talk about a key unlocking a door. When you're with someone like Nicole, who just connects with you readily and effortlessly, it unlocks something within you, doesn't it? Thank you for sharing that, love. Ray, how about you? And Seth's question.
Did you say me?
Yes, please.
Oh, you broke up a little bit.
Oh, sorry.
Seth, could you repeat it again? I want to really get this. A little slow maybe today.
There it is. Do you notice any common traits in your meaningful or memorable stories that you just do? Anything that flows and feels frictionless?
Yeah, I think it's the ability, I want to say ability, but I don't know if that's the correct word, but it's, if somebody asks me a question about myself, how easily I just open up to people when they ask a question, and if I sense that it's a sincere question, that I open right up. Like I'm an open book, and I guess in some ways it's the same with Nicole. It connects me to that person. I think that the person that asked that kind of a question is sincerely wanting to know that about me. And so I just open up, and I think that probably like the rest of us that have gone through the blueprint can confirm that Tammy brings that out in us. She would just ask questions. And so I get, well, when I say that, I think of it's a trusting. So I just trust. And I say, I just trust that everything will be okay. So I'm an open book. Yeah.
And again, another key unlocking a door, because when you're in a conversation with someone and they trust enough to just share, it wears down on your own walls that you might have. So I so appreciate people in conversations that are they're just willing to share. And it just makes the conversation so much more significant. So thank you, Ray. Brandon, how about you and Seth's question?
Yeah, so when I thought about this, as Ray and Nicole were talking, my answer changed. And it changed just because I was making connections between what they were saying and what I was going to say. And that actually goes into what I believe has been pretty effortless for me over the years in these, with these stories stuff. And that's in a group setting, facilitating the brainstorming, the ideas, finding the growth, finding the opportunities, and making connections between those things, especially in a team setting. And then trust. I think that ability to do that goes a long way in building out the trust on the team as well. Yeah.
First of all, thank you for letting your answer change as people were answering for themselves. I love that. Talk about trust. The ability to facilitate brainstorming. It's amazing. What a just. And I love how all of you, and Seth asked it this way, but just for context, for those of you who are listening, when the blueprint process practitioners talk about adjust, we would ask you, what are your justs? Because usually what we just do, because it comes effortlessly easy, it's enjoyable for us to do, we assume that everyone else can do it. And that's why we diminish it as a just. In actual fact, no, because it comes so effortlessly to you, it's proof that it's in your blueprint, and your blueprint is one of a kind. And it's not that there aren't other good facilitators out there other than Brandon. There are. But Brandon's got a unique set of skills that other facilitators wouldn't have that cause his facilitation to be unique, one of a kind. So when you listen to yourself, when you listen to yourself say, that's just something I do, the blueprint process practitioners would remind you that that is the most significant thing that you do, and you should do it more. Thank you. Thank you, Seth, for that lovely question. And what is your action item, sir?
Oh, the action item always blows my mind because I have an answer just like we all suggested today. Go ask someone you love or someone close to you what they see, because even in that discovery, it's pretty amazing that they're going to pull something out that you didn't even have awareness of. So that's a great exercise.
All right, so go ask people how many items would you like for your people to identify? So is there polling their friends and family, coworkers? How many items would you like them to look for in relation to answering this question of what they do that is a just?
Yeah, the safety in that is always 1 to 3. I think that prevents people from getting overwhelmed and it becoming too administrative, because I really just want it off the top of their head and natural and from the heart and not impeded by other barriers.
No, I like that. It's quality over quantity. I love that. Yeah. So now everyone, you've got this lovely assignment. You don't have to do it, but man, to find 1 to 3 things that other people think that you just do supernaturally and effortlessly, it's really good self-information. And then what can you do with that? Thank you, Seth. Appreciate the question and the action item. Nicole, how about your question?
There we go. Couldn't find my cursor. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
I framed my question in the context of already knowing what your blueprint is. So I'm going to adjust the way that I phrased the question a little bit.
Good.
Because if you don't know what your blueprint is quite yet, you can still identify this. So my question was, what is one of your blueprint items that you felt embarrassed by or that you tried to mainstream or normalize until you realized it was a unique part of you? If you haven't gone through the blueprint process, I would say, what is one thing that you feel like you always have to suppress because you're a little bit embarrassed by it, but it just keeps coming up? It's just always there.
Oh, lovely. Is that an action item then, love?
Well, my action item was just really thinking about or sharing an example of how identifying and realizing and accepting that that's just you, that's part of your blueprint, how that may change or may have changed the way that you have interacted with people, or maybe even just a certain person.
Yeah, lovely. Okay, thank you. And I'll have you remind us about that once we're done. So if you wouldn't mind, state the question again, and then we're going to go Ray, Brandon, and Seth.
Yeah. So my question was, what is one of your blueprint items that you felt embarrassed by or that you tried to mainstream or normalize before identifying it as a beautiful part of your uniqueness?
Thank you, dear. Go ahead, Ray.
Well, I'm gonna step out on a limb, and I remember the day I discovered this, and we talked about it, Tammy. But I'm gonna first say, in case my wife ever watches this, I want to say that it was from her. I had this experience with her too, and that is that if I'm out and about in the world and I see a beautiful lady, I can sense a sense of attraction to that person. And I always thought, oh, you're not supposed to be that way and all this stuff. And during our conversation about it, I realized that what it really was, because there's all kinds of beautiful ladies out there, and it didn't happen all the time.
Right.
And it was that I sensed a beautiful soul in that person. And that's what I was really being attracted to. There was something about that soul that attracted me. And that's my embarrassing moment that I wanted to kind of mainstream, or maybe even not talk about, but because you made me very comfortable and I always talked about everything, that I shared that. And even today, I can feel a little angst even saying it to this entire group, but or the entire world possibly. So anyway, that was one of the things that I noticed, and it wasn't a negative thing, and I had always thought it was.
Yeah.
And so I felt this great sense of relief. So anyway, that's my deal.
I love how your second answer confirmed your first. So, right, your first answer is that you're open and honest and sharing, and here you are. I love that so much. And I also love the word you used, mainstream. Oh my gosh, there's another question for you guys. What do you mainstream? What do you find yourself trying to fit in when you don't really want to? Nicole, I think this question is so valuable. When are you trying to shift gears to mainstream? And maybe you shouldn't. maybe your people are missing something that you have and that they need to have their door unlocked. Hey, Brandon, how about you? I know I'm kind of skittering in and out here. Sorry about that. Brandon, how about you? What's your answer?
Well, I mean, the connection by what you said at the end is what I think of when I listen to Nicole's question. I tried to think back and I was looking at my blueprint. I don't know if anyone watching, if you saw me doing this, it's because I'm actually looking at my blueprint. And I just I just couldn't think of anything that I was really embarrassed about, that I uncovered about myself. But as I was listening and I looked at the question again, what did I suppress? I used to suppress myself.
Mm,
I used to suppress my voice. And and I've been in positions of leadership, especially the last half of my adult life. And I would be sitting at the table and I would be keeping my mouth shut when my perspective should probably have been out there. And going through the blueprint process, as I recognized, wow, no, we're meant to be uncovering our uniqueness. And then we're meant to be giving that uniqueness to the world. My perspective, it might be exactly what people need to hear, or it might not. And the people who don't need to hear it they actually benefit from having another perspective, then they can choose from and they can take my perspective and do whatever they want with it. But really, I didn't settle into being comfortable with my uniqueness until I went through the process and discovered, man, I was actually suppressing my perspective from the world when I had no reason to be doing that. All the beliefs, a lot to unpack there that I've unpacked for a long time now, or for 4 years now, right? No, that's exactly what you're meant to do,
yeah.
is uncover your uniqueness and share that perspective.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. It is interesting how much the world kind of puts pressure on us to conform to mainstream, as Ray said. So I so appreciate that you knew kind of intuitively for a long time that that wasn't right. And it's just a matter of developing the guts to go ahead and state, as Ray said, your truth, state what was on your mind, your perspective. I also really, really appreciate how you're aware that you create value for people by doing so, even if they don't agree with it, because it's the contrast that helps them say, well, I don't agree with that, but I agree with that. And what is mine? So I think kind of what Ray was mentioning, your truth, your honesty allows other people, it gives people permission, I think, to say, yes, that works for me, or no, it doesn't, and find out, who am I really? How are we going to know who we are really if none of us are showing up as unique? So yeah, I appreciate your guts on that. All right. So Ray, what is your question? No, Seth, I'm so sorry. I forgot you. Seth, can you answer Nicole's question?
Oh, I'm going to kind of springboard off Brandon. This word beat me up for like 8 weeks, and Tammy's going to laugh. The word teacher ruined me. Like, I could not get used to that word in terms of my blueprint. And as we dug into it, it was getting so much of the junk out of the way, which was doing that in the wrong environment is going to be seen as egotistical. It's going to be seen as overstepping. It's going to potentially, kind of one of those stay in your own backyard type things.
Yep.
As we started digging into, hey, why am I doing this? I had to get all the junk out of the way, which was, I'm not doing it because I want to feel better and elevate my ego. Until we started leaning into the words of seeking relationship, deep diving to pursue mutual understanding, the sanctity of the individual. It was all in this huge love thing that I wanted to communicate and project what I hadn't experienced myself. So in some way, I was trying to fill something that had been missing in my stories.
Yeah.
But when I was doing it, something that I thought was a burden and a negative was actually in place because it generated this projection into the world
Yeah.
that had absolutely nothing to do with me. So now I don't have it a needlepoint on the wall, but teacher is a word that, yeah, it's tough not to get emotional about now for something that started as something that I just, like Tammy will tell you, she'd say teacher and I'd whack it away, like get that word off the table. I'm not touching that. So
Yeah.
quite a process, but that's what stood out.
Oh, I love the transformation that you experienced from, oh my God, no, not me, to getting emotional about it because it not only fits you well, but like you said, you're not about ego. You're so in love with the idea and being able to do that for other people. And all it took was reframing that job description for you. And for those listening, we're not talking about being a teacher like in a classroom. We're talking about what he mentioned. He lined out for you like 3 or 4 things, I think, that teacher means to him. And that's why it's eliciting this emotion in him, because it's tapping into his blueprint. And it is the key that he has been given to unlock others' doors. And thank the Lord, he's using it. Thank you, Seth. All right. Ray, right? Ray's question. Am I right? Okay. Ray, what's your question? And you're still muted, love.
How do you get your people to share their most basic, top level, obvious to them gifts? Obvious of gifts. Yeah. Yeah, that's it.
Okay, excellent. And Nicole, I just realized I didn't go back to your action item, but we'll do that later. Okay, Ray, thank you so much. Let's go, Brandon. Brandon, what is your answer to Ray's question?
Well, I think it starts with setting the environment and making sure that when I start working with a client, we take the first call as much time as it takes to set the environment for what we need from each other to make this relationship one where you would be willing to share that information, Ray, and much more than that. An environment where you're going to feel like you want to show up, you're going to be able to focus, and you can actually be real with yourself and be real with me. Because if you're not going to get out of the process what you need to get out of the process. So I start with the environment every time.
Lovely. And thank you, by the way, for kind of defining what your ideal environment is. I so appreciate that you actually sit down with someone before the process even begins. And you refer to it as an active contract?
Working agreement.
That's it.
Setting the environment.
Yeah.
Yep. That's the first call with me, is that we don't even get into the rest, because it's that important to me to establish the team, to establish the culture, to establish the environment that we're going to be working on really important stuff together.
Oh.
And so we have to have that right.
It's just gorgeous, because I think sometimes people can come to Blueprint not realizing that they are important enough to make it a priority and to treat it with deference, because they don't necessarily treat themselves with deference. And your working contract or working agreement, thank you, whether it reminds them of it or introduces them to it, I so appreciate that that's it. In a sense, that's what you're doing. It's a very subtle message that's in that. Like this is important work because you're important to the world.
Yeah, and I will add that it's mutual. It's what do you need from me? What do you need for this to work? And
Nice.
we fill that out together on the screen. I don't come in and tell you that this is how things have to be, because this is your process. I'm just helping you uncover what's inside of you to include what you need from the environment and from me to to do the work we need to do.
Oh, it's gorgeous. It's absolutely gorgeous because you're saying, I'm not one size fits all. I customize. I am willing to customize. I'm willing to bring what you need. And I get too that just in that conversation, you're learning some aspects of their blueprint because what they're asking for references that. So you're starting the discovery process right away. Super cool. Thank you. All right, Seth, what's your answer to Ray's question?
I think it was my brain went to, as I get comfortable with sharing stories and openness and meeting people in the beginning, it allows that to happen very quickly. It's usually week 3 where people want to quit. We're done with the butt sniffing at that point, as I call it. Week 4, it's like, all right, we're through the what's your mailing address, what's your phone number. Thanks for all the protective stories that you've shared to this point. The more I think you go through conversations like this, you start picking up on nuance of words. We can read body language like it's no one's business. We can connect emotional things that are shared with words that don't really fit yet. So we know there's more there. But probably for the first time, there's safety in this place and in this process that allows you, really for me, for the first time in my life, to be like, okay, you've survived the things that I would probably use to distract you because I expected you to leave by, the 4th question. But when you stay, that's such a huge thing for people, especially in my community, because quite frankly, no one's ever done that. So when you stay and you know that a person is, especially multiplier mind, if you react to my first layer of words, we're going to have problems because I'm trying to find the word to fit the emotion. So it's probably like layer 5 when we get to the thing. So having people that stay, for people that think of things that way, first time in life experience probably, and then secondly, it just creates an open room to be able to get to this stuff.
Yeah. I appreciate too how you slow walk the process for people. So, because I know you're dealing with the people who've had some trauma in their past, some storms, they've walked through storms, maybe they're still going through a storm. So I get that there's a proving process for both you and them, and that you're willing to be patient and sit with them, even if they're still on the surface and not ready to go deep yet. It's very beautiful. It's very generous what you're doing. Nicole, how about you? An answer to Ray's question.
Yeah, I think similar to Brandon, just spending some time initially making that connection, kind of getting to know each other. But I think I learned this really from you, Tammy, becoming very focused on the other person, and not to the point of making them uncomfortable, but my own stories when I'm speaking with somebody else they don't really matter
Mm.
because I'm trying to hear their stories and pull out little individual things in those stories that are unique to them. And so it can sometimes be very tempting to get into a back and forth conversation because it makes sense that when we are connecting with people that we connect with well, that we find a lot of commonality and it's very easy to get into those conversations. But pulling that back, consciously pulling that back and putting the focus on who are you? What is your story? What's important to you? What makes you tick? What's unique about you?
I appreciate that you're giving me credit, dear, but yeah, it's not me. You can't train that thing, you know, and you certainly can't model it. So I would suggest that you've got a just that you've been doing since yay high, where you just find people fascinating. And you're fine answering questions about yourself, but you find them so much more fascinating than your own story because you know your own story. You're curious about them. And we know that you want to be their cheerleader, and you can't be their cheerleader if you're talking about yourself. So my guess is that this is just natural to you and it always has been. You find people endlessly fascinating, which is why you're a blueprint process practitioner, and you want to be their cheerleader. And so what's the point in talking about your own stuff? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Let me see. What are we doing? Oh, yeah. Ray, what is your action item, sir? Oh, you're on mute, love.
I muted because the little puppy started barking again.
Well, of course he did. He has his own purpose.
Yeah, he does. He has a definite purpose. So the question is actually two questions.
Oh, sir, I'm sorry. No question. We're looking for action item at this point.
Well, this is to get them to think.
Oh, sorry about that.
Think about this.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
What is the top 1 to 3 days that stands out in your life thus far? And what impact has that had on your life since that day?
Okay.
That's the action, to think about that and
Okay.
write that all down.
Okay.
Write it all out.
Could you restate the two questions?
What are the top 1 to 3 days that stand out in your life thus far? And what impact have those days had since then?
Interesting. What are you, and can you help us know kind of what your objective is with those two questions?
To think of, I guess, to think about, to reflect on your life, number one, and to think back to the things that were pivotal in your life. That if you had gone a different way, your life could have been completely different.
Nice.
And what impact have those decisions made on your life up to this day? You know, have they affected you? And if they have, what is that?
Excellent. Great. Thank you. Appreciate that. All right, Brandon, how about your question?
All right. How do you communicate your message in a way that attracts your people?
Excellent. Seth?
This is tough for me because I'm an open book, so I tend to go to like my biggest story. You know, it's like going out on a first date for coffee and like, you know, proposing while you're on your second sip. It's really the way to communicate that, I think, as Nicole said, and I was squirming, keep it about the other person, really. And that's so hard for me because I'm like, hey, here's this big story, and I worked like 10 years to figure this thing out, and I don't want you to spend 10 years. So here's the story quick, so you don't have to go through this. But I'm reminded it really is just shut up, Seth. your only job right here is to ask questions and to maybe sometimes not even say anything, just give space to let whatever was said hang out there a little bit. And that's also really difficult for me because I'm pretty transparent with my feelings, and I have to manage that pretty heavily. But it really is just that: shut up, give space to let God show up, influence the story where it needs to go, and let the person on the other side of the table keep doing that discovery and that deep dive that they need to do, because that's where the real breakthrough is going to come for them.
I got to say, though, I do love the intent of what can I share that I've gone through that may help you get through your storm faster, easier, whatever. It's a beautiful intent. Nicole, how about you?
This was a tough question because my initial reaction to this was, I don't think I communicate anything, that there's some force that attracts the people that are my people. But as I thought a little bit about that, it's like, well, okay, but I'm communicating somehow, or that force wouldn't exist, right? Like force has to be recognized.
Good point.
And then as I thought about that, I think I learned to step into who I am and not, which is kind of where my question came from, suppressing or hiding the things that made me unique, that make me unique, and no longer shying away from those and just not necessarily blasting it all over the place, but not hiding it either. It's out there. And the funny thing about the blueprint process in attracting your people is that your people tend to be attracted when you are just demonstrating who you are.
Yeah.
And so then those conversations begin to happen very naturally. And, there are some outward things that I do that just say who I am. So sometimes the things that I wear, or the kind of the attitude that I have at times can be that outward picture of who I am.
Yeah. Bless you. I love everything you said, because I think both is correct. Yes, there is a force. Principle number one is that purpose is a divine event, which means that he is going to make sure that you get together with your people. He's more concerned about that than all of us are. So yes, there is that, but yes, you're right. There's also the onus on us to own who we are, how he made us, so that our reason for being comes to light. And then our people can feel that magnetic attraction, as you said, that they cannot feel if you're trying to mainstream your blueprint.
Well, and Tammy, if I might add just a little something to that, before I realized that, I would find people being attracted to me that were, and maybe it wasn't even really an attraction, but I would find myself in relationships, not intimate relationships, but just relationships, business or whatever, that just never felt right. And it was because I gave off a personality that wasn't really me. So as I began to step into who I really am, those things began to fall away. And that was pretty amazing as I realized that happening.
Yeah. Yeah. Good for you. That's a great nod to how important it is to just be yourself. You're absolutely right, because otherwise we're going to attract people who are not our people. It's so obvious when you say it, and yet we find ourselves holding our mouths just right to try to get someone else's approval when we don't even really care about that person. So it's so much easier. It just clears the complexity. Just be you, and your people and your opportunities will come, because again, who you are is a key that unlocks only certain doors. And obviously you can't be that key if you're trying to be someone else's key.
Yeah.
Nice. Ray. How about you for Brandon's question? You're muted again, dear.
You've already answered it. I think that you just be you. You know, as you say, putting the key in the door. If you're putting the wrong key in, the door won't unlock.
Exactly.
And that's as simple as it has been for me, is just to be myself. And I'm not gonna, you know, like you have said many times, we're not going to be able to help everybody, you know, that one individual to help everybody, because it's too many, number one, and because they're not necessarily our people.
Yep.
They're not going to be, and we're not going to be attracted to them either, you know. So yeah, I think it's that simple. Just being myself when I message.
Nice. I so appreciate that. You are putting your message out there, but you're making sure that you are authentically you without worrying about likes and shares and comments, etc.
Right.
The other thing that I think is missed often when we're trying to mainstream ourselves is we're basically trying to be somebody else. And we're trying to take that person's doors away from them. And that's something that's super important to remember. There's always three parties at play. There are the people who are on the receiving end. There are you on the giving end, but there's also other people on the giving end. We each have a key that is our purpose, that is intended to unlock other doors. So we don't want to be trying to step on somebody else's toes, all the while completely ignoring our people that are meant to receive our key. So thank you for bringing that up, Ray. Thank you for the question, Brandon. And what is your action item?
Identify one person you love being around. What do you value most from that relationship?
Good one. I like that. Okay, so we're going to do a quick recap of everybody's action items. So Brandon's is to identify one person that you love being around and the one reason why. Is that right, Brandon?
What do you value most from that relationship?
What do you value most from that relationship? Thank you, sir. And Ray, what was your action item, please? Oh, it was the two questions.
Yeah, it was the two questions.
Okay, can you remind us again the questions?
Yeah. What is the top 1 to 3 days that stand out in your life thus far? And what impact have those days had on you since that day?
Excellent. Thank you. Nicole, for the first time, can you tell us what your action item is?
Yeah, my action item was to think about or share an example of how acknowledging one aspect of yourself that you had previously suppressed or tried to mainstream, how that has changed how you interact with others.
Ah, lovely. I so appreciate that. Yes, thank you. And Seth, what is your action item again, please?
Mine was going to find a loved one or close friend or what have you that will share with you the 1 to 3 things that you just do to help illuminate the purpose that you bring into the world.
Excellent. Thank you. I appreciate that reminder. Thank you, everyone. All right. So as a wrap up, today we were talking about principle number 2. There are 4 principles of Blueprint, and they will be on our website shortly, hopefully this week, where you can download the 4 principles and an explanation of them. So today we were talking about principle number 2, which is that you are here for a reason. You are here for a reason, and that reason includes certain people. And you will feel it when you're around them. Many of the people today talked about that. You can feel it. There's a kismet, there's a synergy, there is an attraction. And that attraction is because you're meant to come together for a greater purpose still. So this isn't just about one-to-one. This is absolutely one-to-many. Your key unlocks many doors. And when you unlock their doors, they will in turn be able to unlock others. And the whole goal of this practitioner program is that everyone in the world eventually is aware of this concept and they know that they too have a blueprint, they have a purpose, they have a reason for being. And if they just get about doing it, their people will be served. I see such a different world when I think of everybody knowing their blueprint and everybody having a cheerleader, like we were talking about with Nicole, on their side who knows what their blueprint is and is helping them week by week stay true to their blueprint. Because everyone here will nod their head and agree with me that just because you know your blueprint doesn't mean it's easy to stay true to. Right, guys? All right. So thank you so much for hanging out with us today. Next month, I don't know what we're going to be talking about yet. We as a group will get together and we'll share that with you though. So you can look for this recording coming out next week. And then you can look for a promotional video for the next webinar, which will be October 23rd at noon Pacific. And please feel free to share this with other people. We obviously love what we're talking about here. And every single one of these practitioners has channels available where you can not only get in touch with them, but also learn more about them and their particular philosophies as it relates to the blueprint process. Much love to you all. Practitioners, anyone have any final comments that they would like to share?
I was amazed just to point out the power of blueprints and being in community. The relation of our questions today connected to such a broader good, and we did this independently without any prompting, anything, and that always blows me away.
I agree. It is amazing. Talk about synergy when you're with your people. Thank you, Seth, for bringing that up. Nicole, did you have something?
No, I just wanted to say thank you. I appreciate this. It was fun. It was good to hear the questions and the answers.
Yes, I know. It's such a great topic. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for hanging out with us. And again, we will see you October 23rd at noon Pacific.